10 retro video game consoles that laid the foundation for today's gaming. People have always found new ways to entertain themselves at home, which is why the history of gaming consoles is nearly as old as that of personal computers. Before today's PlayStations and Xboxes, an entire lineage of consoles paved the way for modern gaming. These systems not only shaped entertainment, but also influenced how we connect, communicate, and spend our free time. In this video, we'll explore the 10 most iconic gaming consoles that laid the foundation for the gaming world we know today. Let's revisit the milestones that define gaming history. Number 1. Magnavox Odyssey. The journey of gaming consoles began with the Odyssey, which was released in 1972. The Magnavox Odyssey was the world's first device that could be called a video game console today. This device consisted of a white, brown, and black box, along with 2 rectangular controllers. The main box connected with the television and was capable of displaying only 3 square dots and 1 line of varying height. Every game was played using just those main elements, and often players placed plastic overlays on the screen to display additional visuals for each game. The entire thing was very rudimentary, but titles like table tennis offered us a glimpse of what could be the future of interactive entertainment. While it sold only around 350,000 units, the Odyssey introduced the concept of playing video games on your television. Its simple innovations paved the way for all consoles that followed. Number 2. Atari 2600. Later in the 1970s, we saw what actually became revolutionary tech gaming. I'm talking about the Atari 2600. This console was launched in 1977, and it quickly grew into a cultural phenomenon. Titles like Space Invaders, Pong, and Asteroids became household names. Many casual players were turned into avid gamers. The Atari 2600 also introduced swappable cartridges, which allowed players to own multiple games without buying new hardware. It was quite a groundbreaking concept at the time. Its joystick controller also became an iconic part of gaming history, selling over 30 million units worldwide and turning gaming into a major entertainment industry. This console created the template for modern gaming consoles. Without the Atari 2600, home gaming as we know it might never have existed. In fact, Atari still sells functional 2600 consoles as collector items on their online store in the US.
Discover Atari. And discover how far you can go.
The very name brings such heavy waves of nostalgia.
3. Nintendo Entertainment System. Jumping to the 1980s, we had the legendary NES, the console that saved the gaming industry. And I say saved because there was a video game crash in 1983 when the industry saw much decline in sales. However, Nintendo revitalized the market with the NES, pairing it with beloved titles like Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, and Metroid. These games introduced players to immersive worlds and complex gameplay mechanics. What set the NES apart was its focus on storytelling and creativity, and these elements brought depth to games like never before. The introduction of the D-pad on its controllers also influenced game design for decades. The NES sold over 60 million units worldwide, proving that video games weren't a passing fad, but a cultural mainstay. Number 4. Sega Genesis. In 1989, Sega Genesis came roaring in with its blast processing and edgy attitude. Sega positioned itself as the cool alternative to Nintendo, with its mascot, Sonic the Hedgehog, capturing the hearts of gamers looking for speed, action, and attitude. The Genesis was known as Mega Drive in Japan, and was actually released there a year earlier in 1988. Sonic became the most popular game for this platform. Its high-speed gameplay contrasted Nintendo's slower-paced platformers. Genesis also pushed the boundaries of sports gaming with titles like Madden NFL and NBA Jam. By this time, gameplay was getting more competitive and realistic. The 6-button controller also allowed for more complex fighting games like Street Fighter II. And its legacy? The Sega Genesis sold over 30 million units and helped ignite the famous Nintendo vs. Sega console wars, which then fueled gaming innovation for years to come. 5. Sony PlayStation. The mid-90s brought the Sony PlayStation, the original one in the entire PlayStation lineup. Known in short as the PS, it departed from the cartridge system and replaced it with CDs. As CDs had higher storage capacity and faster loading times, This allowed for larger, more detailed games with cinematic cutscenes.
PlayStation was the fact that it actually did use CDs for the games.
Titles like Final Fantasy VII, Metal Gear Solid, and Resident Evil pushed the boundaries of storytelling and immersion. What made the PlayStation revolutionary wasn't just its technology, but its focus on broader audiences. Sony marketed the PlayStation as a lifestyle product, appealing to both teens and adults. The controller also got more sophisticated with the dual analog tech. In fact, the base shape and design of the controller is literally the same as we now see with all consoles. The PlayStation sold over 100 million units easily, which was way higher than any other console we had seen till that date. Number 6. Super Nintendo Entertainment System. In 1991, the world saw an upgrade to the Nintendo Entertainment System. Nintendo hit gold again with the SNES, taking everything that worked with the NES and leveling it up. The SNES introduced the vibrant 16-bit graphics and some classic titles like Super Mario World, The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, Chrono Trigger, and Donkey Kong Country. Its sound chip, which was designed by Sony, created some of the most iconic soundtracks in gaming history. But what truly set it apart was its innovative hardware, like the Super FX chip, which powered games like Star Fox. Most importantly, it was also a huge step forward for multiplayer gaming. It expanded on existing multiplayer tech with accessories like the Super Multitap. The SNES sold over 49 million units and built the bridge between the retro gaming and modern design. This left an influence on gaming developers for decades. Number 7. Sega Dreamcast. The next console on our list had its short-lived but rich market life. This was the Sega Dreamcast. It was launched in 1999 and was a little ahead of its time. It featured online gaming capabilities with its built-in modem, which was a fresh feature for its era. Games like Phantasy Star Online introduced players to multiplayer experiences that were truly global. Plus, the Dreamcast library included some creative gems like Shenmue, Crazy Taxi, and Jet Set Radio, which showcased unique artistic direction. Its visual memory unit, known as VMU in short, added a second screen to the controller. Despite selling only 9.13 million units, the Dreamcast's bold ideas laid the groundwork for online gaming and inspired features in modern consoles. Number 8. Game Boy. Next one on our list is one of the most influential handheld consoles. The Nintendo Game Boy, released in 1989, wasn't the first of its kind, but definitely the best-selling one. It gained popularity for its portability and good battery life, and the availability of iconic titles like Tetris, Pokemon Red and Blue, and The Legend of Zelda made it all the more appealing.
It fits well in the hand, and everything has a very solid feel that you don't find often in newer systems like the 3DS.
An improved variant, the Game Boy Color, was launched in 1998, and it brought a vibrant twist to its library of games. Later in 2001, the market also saw the Game Boy Advance, known as GBA in short. The GBA added even more games and a better display. The original Game Boy sold over 118 million units, and the GBA sold around 81 million units. The Game Boy consoles proved that gaming didn't have to stay at home, it could be with you everywhere. Number 9. Atari Lynx. Talking of handhelds, we can't miss the Atari Lynx. This device came out the same year as the Game Boy and actually had a full-color LCD screen that the Game Boy didn't. The Lynx featured ambidextrous controls, which meant that you could flip the console to play with your left hand too. This device never sold as much as the Game Boy, despite being technologically superior, but it sure was one step forward in the evolution of gaming consoles. Interestingly, Atari launched a Lynx 2 in 1991, but that too couldn't see much success. They gave up on the Lynx lineup in 1996 ultimately. Number 10. Nintendo 64. Let's end the list with the Nintendo 64. This console was released in 1996 and it redefined multiplayer gaming with its 4 controller ports and titles like GoldenEye 007, Super Mario 64, and The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. The N64 brought 3D gaming into the mainstream and was the closest competitor to the Sony PlayStation in the early days. The N64 offered players fully realized 3D elements and gameplay. It also introduced innovations like the Rumble Pack, which added force feedback to controllers. It wasn't that big of a commercial success, but it managed to sell over 32 million units worldwide, and its local multiplayer experiences made it a favorite at parties, laying the foundation for the multiplayer culture that thrives today. Alright, that's it for our countdown of the 10 retro consoles that paved the way for modern gaming. Which of these consoles do you remember playing? Or did you have a favorite retro system that didn't make the list? Drop a comment and let us know. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more American culture and nostalgia. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.